Good morning. I am Ashley Andre, and I'm a Policy Initiatives Advisor in the Secretary's office here at the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, DACCAP. And thank you for being here for the quarterly meat industry office hours. Today, we are very lucky to have with us several speakers. First, we'll have Jeff Swenson, our livestock and meat specialist here at DACCAP. We also have Paul Humphrey. He's our director of DACCAP's Bureau of Meat and Poultry Businesses. We have Betsy Leonard with us, our Agriculture and Natural Resources Education Director with the Wisconsin Technical College System. And finally, we also have Paul Short, our Culinary Arts Program Chair at Madison College. So thank you all of us for being with us. And now I'll turn it over to Jeff Swenson. Thank you for being here, Jeff. Go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Jeff Swenson, Livestock and Meat Specialist with the Department of Agriculture. I'm sorry, an email popped up on me that looks important. But thank you for joining us. I know not everyone on the call is a meat processor, but we're extremely happy that you're here to learn about the Wisconsin Technical College meat talent programs. I'm going to turn it over to Paul Humphrey, who is going to give us a food safety update first.
All right, well, good morning. As Jeff indicated, I'm Paul Humphrey, the Bureau Director with the Bureau of Meat and Poultry Businesses. As typical, I'll make some brief remarks and some promotion for opportunities within the state for education. First is the Humane Handling Institute at River Falls. Dr. Kurt Vogel continues to put out some really great programming up there, and through the Meat Talent Development Program, grant program, there's some tuition reimbursement opportunities for that coursework. So if you are a meat establishment or know people that work at meat establishments, it's a great program to get involved in. Also, like to make a plug for the UW Basic HACCP course coming up end of this month. I believe it's May 29th and 30th. Again, tuition reimbursement is available for that course as well. So up to 2 staff per meat establishment can participate through that program. So great opportunities. One thing that I'm really striving for is to provide education to the industry. And so the balance of my time this morning will be just briefly reviewing the generic E. coli verification requirements for meat establishments. All right, so the purpose of the generic E. coli verification is to verify the effectiveness of the sanitation process control in a slaughter establishment. So we primarily consider generic E. coli as an indicator organism, which helps an establishment demonstrate process control. So you may have heard of E. coli 0157H7. Generic E. coli is not that. Generic E. coli is not one of the STECs. So STECs are strigatoxin producing E. coli, and between STECs, which includes 0157H7, those are pathogenic versions of E. coli and can cause human illness and even death in some cases. So we test for the generic kind as more of an indicator of the presence or potential for an adulterant in the product. And you can see the additional types of serotoxins there. So the regulations, the criteria that we consider at livestock establishments, except swine, they must have a generic E. coli sampling program, and the relevant regulation is provided. Swine establishments, slightly different, must have a process control sampling program or an indicator organism. So there's some decisions to be made at the establishment level as to which organism they're going to sample for. Within poultry, typically looking at Salmonella or Campylobacter, but again, a process control program would be a requirement at a poultry slaughter establishment. So depending upon your establishment and your prevalent species from the previous year, that would indicate which of those classes of meat or poultry you would be sampling in. So if you're primarily a beef slaughter establishment, you have a beef program. But if you had beef and swine, but you did more swine last year, you'd be doing a swine sampling program this year. So some of the regulatory requirements of what's needed for the sampling program. The procedures, the plan must identify who is collecting the sample, so the person, the individual, what the process looks like, how it's to be done, the location of the sample collection, so where in the establishment, at what point in the process is the collection of the sample to be accomplished, How is the establishment going to determine randomness? So the goal is to have a random sample, so identifying a random carcass in the process. What is the scheme that you're using? So are you running the dice? Are you using a random number generator? What is the method by which you're establishing a random sample? And lastly, how are you ensuring sample integrity? So procedures or standards around how you're going to ensure the sample is handled properly through collection and testing at the lab. So here there's a brief summary of where the samples are collected from, depending upon species and of course, whether it's an excision sample or a sponge sample. So for cattle, sheep, and goats, you're primarily sampling from the flank, brisket, and rump areas. On swine, you're sampling from the ham, belly, and jowl areas. Frequency. So the regulations and my comments today are mostly through the lens of a very small meat establishment. So for a very small meat establishment, samples are required once per week at a minimum, starting in the first full week of June. So it's kind of a unique wording on that, but that's what it is. And so we expect a minimum of 13 samples to be collected over the next 13 weeks. If there's a lapse in production, you don't have a slaughter specific week, you just add on another week of sampling to get 13 results at a minimum. And again, the goal is to establish process control. So record keeping requirements, those results need to be kept and provided in CFU or colony forming units per centimeter squared. The results need to be recorded on a chart or a graph to display the data in a way that can be analyzed and synthesized and assessed. And lastly, the results need to indicate those last 13 samples I just mentioned. Records retention, those records should be kept for a period of up to 12 months and made available to inspection when requested. So there's a monthly Jerky coli task where your inspector may ask you for those records and verify that the sampling is occurring, and then looking at the trends and how you're assessing those trends for process control. Some reminders, again, random sample collection is very important in this process. Samples should be collected at a minimum of 12 hours post-harvest, or the animal carcass has been chilled. That's an important step there. And lastly, establishments are to sample the predominant species, as I mentioned earlier. So as time goes on, each establishment will identify what its baseline looks like, what its norms look like, and that'll be helpful to establish when you've deviated from your standard process control levels. And Emphasize has helped in that, and there's published materials available that establish baseline data that you can reference as you get started with your sampling program. Here's an example of what that looks like. So 3.1 CFUs per centimeter squared would be the upper limit or the threshold where you'd want to start considering what actions need to be taken for a livestock slaughter establishment. For a swine establishment, it'd be 400 CFUs per centimeter squared. So here's an example of a well-controlled process. So you'll see the baseline data is very, very low in terms of the CFUs per centimeter squared. But it looks like around week 8 in the sampling program, there was a spike above the 3.1 number that I mentioned earlier. So a random event like that is considered a well-controlled process up to that point. So here's an example of where process control has been lost. So we're now well above the 3.1, and we were above that number for 3 consecutive weeks. So reason for an assessment to be done to establish what may have gone on in that time period. And here again is another example of a loss of process control, where again the trends increased and then sustained above the upper limit. So, all right, everyone's favorite thing, non-compliance. So when will your inspector document a non-compliance? It's really these 4 areas. So not having written procedures, not collecting the 13 samples, not graphing and charting the results, and not keeping records for 12 months. So your inspector won't take action on a single result, but it'll be informative as they look at your sanitary dressing procedures, other aspects of your establishment to establish whether adulteration is occurring, but a single result would not trigger an action from your inspector. So that's a brief recap of generic E. coli verification. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, we can probably take 1 or 2 quick questions for Paul if there's any of those. Otherwise, we can wait until the end of the session for general questions for all the presenters. I don't see anything in the chat. Ashley did a very good job already of introducing our next two speakers. Betsy Leonard is the Agriculture and Natural Resources Education Director at the Wisconsin Technical College System and has really been the main contact between DATCAP and WTCS as far as the Meat Talent Program goes. And she knows the pulse of what's happening on each one of the campuses as far as the Meat Talent Program goes. And Paul Short is Culinary Arts Program Chair at Madison College. And Paul, I'll also say you're kind of the father of this meat training program. Madison College was the first technical college to have a program like this, and it predated the Meat Talent Program money that came in. So a lot of what we were able to do at other campuses is modeled after what Paul started at Madison College. So with that, I'll turn it over to Betsy. Oh, can't hear you, Betsy. Not yet, Betsy. No. Now I think we hear you.
Oh, did you hear my big sigh?
Yes, that's what
Okay,
we hear.
okay, all right. Well, that's great. My name is Betsy Leonard. I'm the Education Director with the Wisconsin Technical College System office, and I work with all 16 of the technical colleges. I just want to share my screen and make sure you're able to see it. Looks like it's sharing. Are you able to see it? Perfect. The Wisconsin Technical College System, for those who are not familiar, is comprised of 16 technical colleges within the state. And really, each of the 16 technical colleges runs as their own entity, but all of us together are comprised and make up one system. We were fortunate to receive grant funding to start meat processing programs at many of our colleges. As Jeff said, Paul Short really was the lead on this. He at Madison College had the programming, and because Madison College was willing to share out their curriculum, the other colleges that are participating in this grant were able to start programming pretty quickly as well. Of the 16 technical colleges, we have 7 that are participating in this grant. They are Fox Valley, Gateway Technical College, Madison, Midstate, North Central, Northwood, and Southwest. So looking at those 7 technical colleges, they are offering different certifications. Not all of the colleges had culinary programming or meat programming in place. So what that meant is that for them to offer programming rather quickly, they decided to go the route of local certificates. For the technical college system, if they want to offer full programming, the college actually has to go through a lengthy process, and that includes finding labor market data, making sure that the industry is represented, that there's not oversaturation of program graduates. And it's a lengthy process of their college going through board approval as well as the Wisconsin Technical College System board approval. So because it could take a lengthy process and because we wanted to be able to roll out programming really quickly, as I said, most of them are offering local certificates, with some of them looking at now the potential of moving into programming, which I'll talk about in just a moment. When we were looking at the opportunity to offer programming, we worked with workforce development. We have dual credit opportunities for high school students who want to receive some of this college credit in this meat programming area, looking at those students receiving the free tuition as well as non-traditional. And when I talk about non-traditional students, the majority of our students are what we consider non-traditional. They're not the student that is coming directly from high school. And when Paul talks, he's going to have some of those examples as well. But we've really seen a representation, cross-representation of the state of Wisconsin, from high school student to families enrolling, the non-breadwinner of the household enrolling in courses. And for most of them, the biggest contribution for them coming into this programming was the tuition reimbursement from the state of Wisconsin that's making it affordable for them to have their opportunity to receive the education that they're wanting to gain. So of those 7 technical colleges, you will see at the state of Wisconsin map that we really have, from the north to the south, and, central to the east, covered with these programmings. So no matter where a student is in Wisconsin, it's our hope that they have the opportunity and the availability to get to one of these locations that's offering this programming. For our colleges, this programming for most of them really was new and innovative instruction. And as I said before, Madison College had the artisanal meat programming. Paul had the curriculum, and it was because of that curriculum that the other colleges were able to invest in their students in their district through the funding from Wisconsin in this grant. What we didn't take into consideration is delays in equipment delivery, receiving supplies. All of the great things that were happening during the pandemic have seemed to continue a little bit throughout this programming. So while the colleges were ready to roll and hit the ground on day one with programming, they might not necessarily have had all of the equipment needed to start that programming. So for many of them, they've gotten very creative. And some of those pieces that have come out of this have been really awesome partnerships with business and industry members, as well as high schools. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. In addition, we've had several of our colleges who have had build out projects, one of those being North Central Technical College in Wausau. So North Central is one of the colleges who has taken on a bigger project with the development of their cold lab. The cold lab had one issue after another, but I'm happy to say that it is almost completed and they have started programming and are ready to roll out their full programming come this fall semester. Gateway Technical College finished their first cohort, so I want to talk a little bit about the 7 colleges and what they're doing. And Southwest actually just started their programming this spring semester. And the pictures that I'm showing you were actually their classes this week. They had their first cohort this spring semester, as I said, with 15 students enrolled. And they really have worked on building their programming. They also had gone through the full program approval process. So they do have a technical diploma that is fully approved. And they've got the second semester that's going to be starting with internship and online meat marketing courses for them. They've had great feedback from their students. And as I said before, non-traditional students are the majority of their faces in their classroom. This week, they were working on the weighing process, weighing and packaging. So in these photos, you will see that they are working on smoking their products, putting everything together, making sure that everything is just right. So it's neat for me to be able to see these colleges and the students knowing where we started in 2019 with the initial conversation of which programs are offering this to now seeing 7 of our technical colleges fully functioning and running these courses and programming. Mid-State Technical College, aside from Madison, Mid-State was really our leader for those who were offering local certificates. So as I said before, they did not have a full program. They had local certificates that are available, but one of the cool things that Mid-State did is they did not have the physical capacity to offer these programs. So they connected with their district high schools, and actually the equipment that they purchased through the grant is being housed at Auburndale High School and Pittsville High School. So they've got really great partnerships with these 2 high schools, and they've been alternating their cohorts. Their first graduating meat celebration students were at Pittsville, and they were at Pittsville, and this year they will be at Auburndale. I do invite all of you. They have their meats celebration for this cohort. It's taking place on May 22nd from 5 to 7:30 at Auburndale High School. So if anybody is interested in seeing what these students have learned, being able to sample their product, their logo is, if you don't leave the celebration with meat sweats, they're doing something wrong. So please, by all means, if you would like to attend this event, connect with myself. If you've got Ashley's contact, she can put you in connection with me. We would love to have you see what Auburndale High School is doing with Mid-State Technical College grants dollars. And again, for this programming, the high school students are taking coursework during the day, and then in the evening, they have the adult section. So they're really offering those opportunities to both high school clientele or high school students so they can receive those college credit, as well as the adults. And again, everybody is receiving that tuition reimbursement for successful completion of the coursework. We have the other colleges that are also participating. Fox Valley has a culinary program. They had issues at the start with the tuition reimbursement. As I said, each one of our technical colleges does things differently, and they're able to, create their own processes. And so for them, we did have some hiccups along the way with the tuition reimbursement piece. Now all 7 are participating fully. The enrollments are going up. So the interesting thing for us is that while our programs have been able to utilize this funding for the past 2 years, the fall semester, looking at this last semester of grant funding, is probably going to be the largest for us when it comes to tuition reimbursement. But we couldn't have done it without the state, without DACCAP, and without the Department of Administration. And I just want everybody to know that, through the Meet Talent Initiative, we really are improving education and continuing learning. Our colleges are focusing greatly on their districts. They're working with their meat industry partners. We've got contacts with meat industry. Midstate, one of the things that they're doing is they're actually looking now at other or alternative game coursework. They've been working with some of their local partners, and there's been a need for venison. So they're actually teaching coursework on venison. And now this coming fall semester, they're looking at other game products, which is exciting. It's not just the traditional hog or steer, cow, beef products that you're thinking of. We're really looking outside of the box to offer something for everybody. And fostering those new connections, the technical college system prides itself on working with our business and industry members to improve all of our communities. And that's really what's happening with this Meet Talent Grant. We've really had an opportunity to look at something differently, create new programming, and hopefully it will just continue. And as I said before, several of the colleges who started with local certificates have found that the need is there. And now they're looking at the full programming approval process, which is awesome for us. And again, we want to thank Governor Evers for investing in the technical college system and in industry. Secretary Romansky and the team that I've worked with, Jeff and Kara, I couldn't have done this without you, and especially our 7 technical colleges who have really led the way on this. So with that, I am going to pass this to Paul Short. He has been my right hand. He has been the knowledge that I've needed to gain through this process. He really is the one who steamrollered ahead for all of us and paved the way. So Paul, it's yours.
There we go. You guys are making me blush. Well, first of all, yes, my name is Paul Short, and I currently run the artisanal modern meat butchery program at Madison College. And Jeff actually was a big part of us starting that program. I think it was probably getting on 9 years now. When we first started it, we organized what was called a DACM. And in that DACM, we put together this curriculum that I've shared with the WTCS. And along the way, when we first started, we had a pretty comprehensive program, but realized it was too much. So over the years, we streamlined it and figured out that when people wanted to get into the meat cutting world, they wanted to get in and they wanted to get out and they wanted to get started. And so that's really what we did with that program was focused on what were the things they needed the most that would get them through in a year and in the industry right away. And so it was through Jeff Swanson and Joe Parajecki, who's not here today, and some others that were part of that DACM meeting that we built all of this curriculum. And one of the reasons that we did it, at least this is where, for me, it was, back then, I even recognized there was a problem of farmers being able to get their meat processed. The date lines were incredibly long. And then when COVID came, it got even worse. And so it was already happening. And we recognized that one of the unique features about Wisconsin was that we did have a lot of local small town butchers. In fact, thank God we did, because when COVID did hit, those places filled up. But if we wouldn't have had those operations, it would have been even more of a disaster for farmers in the state of Wisconsin. And we quickly realized that we needed to expand that. With this needs to grow. We need more students. We need more people in this industry. And one of the things that we try to tell all our students that come into the program, there's so many avenues in the meat world that we want you to consider. For some people, doing the slaughter, that's not their thing, but there's other parts to the butchery world that are super important that we need to have people out there taking care of that work as well. And one of the things that we were very fortunate to have happen with Governor Evers' grant was the mobile harvesting. And there are 3 of us that currently have, or 2 will have their vehicles soon. We have our vehicle, but it's about to be fabricated by our college, actually, and our students. But those units are also just as important as brick and mortar establishments, because some of the things that we've learned is that a lot of farmers, they don't want to transport their animals off the farm, creating more stress. And by having the mobile units come to them, that really eases down that stress level quite a bit. That's a learning process too, as Betsy has said. Getting equipment, finding vehicles, getting the fabrication done has absolutely brought some challenges to all 3 schools. We did have someone ready to fabricate all 3 vehicles for us, and they had to back out. And when that happened, we were all scrambling to find a way to get those trucks built. I think we're on the right path now. I think all 3 schools have that happening. I found it interesting, Betsy, that the last slide you had up was actually from the mobile harvest that we all went to. No, you're muted. Nope, you're muted. Okay. Well, anyways, it's fine, Betsy. We part of that experience of getting those trucks and getting those trucks built was that uh, the schools that were going to do this, we all went to a mobile harvest to learn about the process. And so in the end, um, the 3 schools that ended up doing this, we all decided what kind of vehicle we wanted to do. 2 of the schools are going to go with trailers. I'm going to go with the truck. Um, and the fabrication process, yes, I will absolutely talk about that. So we've made our decisions how we're getting our trucks done, and next is for us is our students in Madison College in our welding program are going to actually help us build out our truck. And what's unique or cool about it is that in the welding program, they have a final project that they have to do. And typically students have to buy the metal and everything they need for that. And oftentimes though, it's difficult for them because they don't have the dollars to go out and pay for that kind of stuff. So with them doing our truck, because we're paying for all that, they don't have to buy any metal, but their final project is to work on that truck for us. And it's a cross partnership with not only in the welding, but also in 2 other areas of the college that work on metal fabrication of some sort. So we're really excited about being able to do that. And to be honest with you, the journey to where we are today has been crazy. I mean, it has been absolutely crazy to find someone to work on these trucks and who will actually build them out. So we're actually excited that we are involved with them. We have someone in the architectural drawing area, engineering area of the college who's going to draw plans for us, which we will then submit to the state for you to review as well. But that we're excited to be moving forward on this finally. And I think it's part of starting up these programs. There's a lot of unknown. Um, you know, can we do this? Can we not do this? And so for us at Madison College, we are currently working with you folks at the state to get our HACCP plan in place. because we recognize that this is going to have to happen, and we want it to happen, and we think that by doing this, this will allow us to help the other colleges do the exact same thing. We recognize that food safety is extremely important, and we want to make sure our students and the other students at the state level will have a better understanding of why that HACCP plan is so important and how important it is for them to implement their own. So we're kind of carving that out to get started with. And you know, I've everything we've done at Madison with the plan, I've shared with my students. So they too know what's going on. And so that when they get through it and they get out into the industry and it's time for them to develop their own HACCP plans, they will have seen part of that process with us. And I think that's extremely important as well. We've had a number of students that have come through our program that they're, well, as Betsy said, they're a different group. They're not your typical students. They are amazing students. I mean, I can't tell you. I have farmers, I have veterans, I have people from all over this state who come into this program, and their uniqueness is something else. But the one thing they all have in common, their work ethic is amazing. I mean, it's mind blowing to me to watch. I've been with the culinary program for coming on 30 years in October, and I've never seen students like this. These folks come in and, you know, at the start of the year, I laid it out for them of how we start our day in the kitchens and what you have to do before you can do anything. And that means clean, wash, sanitize the whole area. Before you touch any meat, before you pick up a knife, this whole area has to be done every single time you come in here. Not once did I ever have to say anything to them. And not only that, but they clean up after other people before they even get in there. So it's really quite amazing to see this group. The veterans, I mean, honestly, they are dedicated people in life anyways. And when they come to school and they are ready to learn something new, they embrace it like I've never seen anything like it. And then on top of that, the farmers that come, they already have a work ethic that's mind blowing. And when they show up, they're ready. You know, bring it on. And I swear, it is a challenge to bring in enough product for them to be busy enough throughout the entire class time, because they just get to it and they don't waste time. And they have in our program, one of the classes that we have was pasture to plate. And in that class, they went to 10 different farms last fall. And every single farm that they went to, their interaction with the other farmers was incredible. They shared knowledge, they asked questions, and you know, I never had to say, okay, we make sure you have a list of questions for these guys. Not once. They really embraced the whole idea of it. Another class was the mobile harvest class. And we went out with prem meats out of Spring Green and through the entire month of October. So I was asking students to, you know, probably get up at 5 in the morning and meet us at a farm at 7 a.m. To work on to see this whole process of mobile harvest. They all showed up. They all were there. None of them, you know, I overslept or any of that nonsense. No, they were all there and they were all asking questions. And what was really great was the inspectors that were out at these sites treated our students like gold, let them ask questions, and made sure that whatever they wanted to know, they would answer for them. We've had a great working relationship with UW. Jeff Sindelar is actually on our advisory board as well, and also was one of the early people with Jeff Swenson that started our program. And Jeff Sindelar and his group over at the meat science area have allowed our students to see what they do inside there with their slaughter process. And it has been fantastic. I can't stress that enough. Early on in the process, I know when we were sharing curriculum, There were some schools that were worried about taking students to see these kinds of things. Some even said, why would anybody want to see that? And I simply said, that's why they're here. And they understood that. And our students, we've never had a problem, but we always say to them, if this is not your cup of tea, it's okay. You're not going to have, we don't expect it to be for everybody. Have not run into that yet. So yeah, if you have questions about our program, happy to answer them. If you have anything you want to know about it, happy to answer that as well. And just thank you for having me here today.
Are there any questions for Paul or Betsy? While we keep our eyes on the chat, and feel free to chime in, just unmute yourself and ask questions as well. But Paul and Betsy did a really good job of covering it. So the Meet Talent Initiative was funded through a $5 million pledge, if you will, from Governor Evers from the America Rescue Plan Act money. And Paul Humphrey had mentioned the Humane Handling Institute at River Falls. That was part of that funding to get that program up and going. The HACCP training that's coming up later this month, tuition is reimbursable for that for meat processors, 2 from each plant, as Paul had said. And that is part of the Meet Talent Initiative as well. That money is, tuition reimbursement comes from that money. So, and all the technical college programs that got up and going since that $5 million was put in place is part of the Meet Talent Initiative as well. I am not seeing any questions, and maybe we just need some time for people to formulate those. I am going to make one more very quick introduction because Dr. Darlene Conkle joined us. She's the state veterinarian for the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. We asked Darlene to join us today in case there were any questions about high pathogenic avian influenza in dairy cattle. And I know that they came up with a different terminology for that I don't have memorized yet. If you are a meat processor or a livestock producer that has questions about the movement of dairy cows after the new federal regulations came out, we can get that information to you. If you have any quick questions for Dr. Conkle, she'd be happy to address those as well. And she's kind of a backup in case anybody has questions about it today. We can do some more outreach. And like I said, we can supply information via email to anybody that wants that information. You can put your email in the chat or contact any of us at the department after this. But good morning, Darlene.
Good morning. I'll take myself off mute here. Sorry, there's a bit of background noise. There's carpet installation going on in our floor nearby. But yeah, thanks, Jeff. I'm happy to answer any questions. Just as a super quick summary, the high path avian influenza H5N1 virus has been detected in cattle as of March 25th. With some unusual signs that they were noticing in dairy farms in Texas and some in Kansas. Including a drop in milk production, drop in feed intake, and some low-grade fevers in lactating cattle. So since then, there have been 36 farms in 9 states. A lot of those additional cases have been associated with moving lactating cattle, but some not. So we're learning more about this virus and how it acts in cattle, trying to gather information from those affected farms. And the most recent news was last week, USDA APHIS issued a federal order that requires mandatory reporting of influenza viruses in livestock, which was already a requirement in Wisconsin. So that part is not a change for us. And the second part of the order requires pre-movement testing and a negative test for influenza A for dairy cattle moving interstate. And right now that concentrates on the lactating cattle. They're the ones we figure will give us the most information. So our Wisconsin Veterinary Diagnostic Lab is testing those samples. As of Wednesday, they had tested about 100 samples. We do not have any positive detections here in Wisconsin as of yet, but definitely trying to get the word out, working in particular with markets and slaughter plants in the state for cull dairy cattle moving across state lines through the market systems. Again, if these cull cattle, if they're lactating, if they're moving directly to a slaughter establishment across the state line, they do not need testing, but they do need movement documentation. They need either a certificate of veterinary inspection or they need an approved movement documents that an ownership or statement basically that documents that move. So, and they can move to a market within their home state with that as well, and then move interstate to a slaughter plant. But it's basically crossing the state line, unless it's directly to a slaughter establishment that requires a pre-movement test. We do have quite a bit of information now on our website, so encourage everybody to look at that. And I know Ashley's great, always about following up with those links. But yeah, happy to answer any questions, or happy to, have a different session where we talk through it more fully if all of you are getting questions.
Thank you, Darlene. We've tossed a lot of information your way this morning. For those of you that have joined us, and again, we certainly appreciate you being on the call. So if there's any comments or questions for any of our speakers, whether it be Paul, Humphrey, Darlene at DACAP, or Paul and Betsy with the Wisconsin Technical College System, feel free to chime in or put your question in chat. And if not, I'll ask if there's any final comments from any of the speakers or participants, and we'll let you have a little bit of your time back this morning.
I'm going to try to talk. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I also wanted to add that the Wisconsin Technical College System has really benefited from the partners with our UWs. Through the initial startup conversation and working on this grant process, many of us came together, and the benefit of all of the educational systems working together for us has been twofold, especially for our faculty, because they've been able to partake in coursework and certification, and several of our faculty have gone through the Master Meat Cutter, and we couldn't thank UW partners enough. So we're really appreciative of bringing all of us together, and that's what DACAP really did for all of us.
One of your instructors has gone through the Master Meat Crafter program and graduated, and she's at Southwest Tech right now. Travis with North Central is in the Master Meat Crafter program right now, and I just want to give an extended shout out to the Tech College System, because Ron Russell, who is a part-time instructor at the Madison College program, was a guest speaker at the Master Meat Crafter program yesterday. So there is some synergy that's happening between the technical college system and those UW campuses as well. And we certainly appreciate the networking that you have all done. Che, I see your question. If you're asking about grants for meat processing equipment, I can reach out to you, or you can reach out to me later. There are no current grant programs going. There will be another grant announcement early in 2025. That's the next that we have on our radar here at the Department of Agriculture. Or you can check USDA/meat, and federal programs that may be open currently would be listed there. And the Wisconsin Technical College programs are 100% reimbursed as of now through the end of 2024. We are working to extend that. And we certainly think that we're moving in a positive direction to make sure that tuition reimbursement is available past the end of the next fall semester. So yes, it is 100% reimbursed for successful completion of the course.
Jeff, real quick on that one. There is a small portion of it that's not. It's
Okay.
fees that are not. And I want to be fair to anybody out there that those fees still have to be paid by students. They're not a lot of money, but they do have to be paid. And I saw something here about enrollment. We will not have a wait list in Madison College, only because we will take them all. If I need to add more sections, we'll add more sections, but we'll take them all.
And thank you for that clarification, Paul. I appreciate that. And to follow up on waiting list, each college has a little bit of a different maximum students that can be enrolled. Some are as low as 12, 15. As Paul mentioned, they can take more at Madison College. We will do our best to get any student that's interested in the training program enrolled. Hi, it looks like we have your questions answered, and feel free to reach out to myself afterwards if you have any further questions about equipment funding and grants for that. And Amy is asking a question about this recording, and I will toss that to Ashley, and hopefully she has an answer for that. Oh, she's already posted where it'll be found. So
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Jeff. I put a link into our meat and livestock development page, so it will be posted likely next week. So thank you for the question.
And Amy, thank you for being on the call. We appreciate your interest from the veteran standpoint on training, and Paul covered that really well. He does have some veterans that are in the program right now, so we welcome those enrollees, of course. With that, if we don't have any other questions, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Friday. And thank you very much for joining us once again. And stay tuned. We'll announce the next quarterly meat safety office hours very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.